Welcome everyone to our program today, which is an introduction to a program that's coming up called What's Next for the Climate Change Economy. My name is Gary Goodemote. I am the president of SEON, which is Sustainable Energy Outreach Network. And I'm joined today with Paul Costello and Orly Munzing. Paul is the executive director of the Vermont Council on Rural Development. And Orly, are you the executive director? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And founder of Strolling of the Heifers.
Executive heifer.
Oh, okay. Call you? Sorry. That's a breach, isn't it? So I'm joined today by Paul and Orly, and we're going to talk about this upcoming program. First, I want to mention a little bit about the organization that I'm involved with. I actually am involved with Friends of the Sun, and we are out on Putney Road in Brattleboro. And this climate change economy has sort of been my life since before we thought there was climate change, I guess, for about 35 years. And I've been involved with primarily wood and pellet heat, but a bunch of other things like solar hot water and sunrooms, and some things that I'm glad we're not doing anymore, like composting toilets and this, that, and the other thing. So, but one of my roles is to be the president of SEON, and I'm one of the founding members of SEON. It's called Sustainable Energy Outreach Network, and it is what's referred to in the big world, I guess, as an energy cluster. It doesn't mean much to people in the US, but in Europe there are these organizations, and their purpose is to promote and accelerate the use of green energy and the practices of green building and so forth. And so Guy Payne, who is our executive director, happens to be in Upper Austria right now as we speak. And he is at the energy cluster headquarters of the energy cluster that ours is patterned after, or modeled after, I should say. And so he's in Austria to attend a biofuel conference, an international biofuel conference. So, but SEON is an organization like an energy cluster, and we're a group of businesses, nonprofits, and individuals who are interested in green energy, green building, and we've been around for about 3 years. We have, in the last 3 years, had monthly meetings for green builders, and so they are competitors who are collaborating to learn new techniques, insulation, water vapor, ventilation, those kinds of things, which are really crucial in the future. And the lack of good practices will rot a building out. So they're very interested in doing the right thing. And then we also have workshops on energy issues, solar, all kinds of things. So, we're located on Putney Road, above Friends of the Sun. So I'm going to be done with that and ask you, Paul, if you can talk a little bit about your organization and a little bit about the program that's coming up.
Thanks so much, Gary. It's great to be here. We're talking about what's next for Vermont's climate change economy. It's a Brattleboro event that's going to be held in the Latchis Theater on October 6th from 7 to 9. And we're basically inviting the business community, residents, folks from throughout Windham County and beyond, who want to think with us about the next stage for Vermont as a leading place for clusters like that. You think about the cluster that you've developed here around green building. How do we tell the story of Vermont as a place that's leading this economy nationally, as a way to attract new businesses, situate ourselves as mission central nationally around green economic development, and think of it as a marketing tool to attract young people who are looking for places that are solving problems, global problems, that we solve business to business, and we make profits and we build community at the same time. So the Council on Rural Development is a neutral facilitator of public process. We're charged by the Federal Farm Bill to bring people together across party lines, across the silos of bureaucracy and business, to think together about what we stand for as a people, what our point in history is, what key things we need to move forward. So we've done policy work around everything from in-state energy generation to the working landscape, farm and forest development, the Council on the Future of Vermont, the largest scale analysis of public values. We also go town to town. We've been to Guilford recently. We go to towns on the border. We've worked with Rutland, Bennington. Right now we've just finished work with St. Johnsbury, where we come in and we bring teams of state, federal officials with us, secretaries in state government, heads of congressional offices, not to tell towns what to do or that we know best what's for their future, but to bring people together, help them line up around core priorities, connect to resources, and move their communities forward. And we don't have an agenda for towns, but every town we go to is looking at, can we build an ag network? Should we be expanding green building? What are we going to do about resilience in the face of the next potential floods or other challenges? How do we incubate businesses in our downtown? How do we generate more energy? How do we expand thermal efficiencies and so forth? So we've come to see that there's a cluster of elements that people are wrestling with all through the state of Vermont. We also have a cluster of assets like Green Mountain Power, one of the most progressive utilities in the country, VEIC, Vermont Energy Investment Corporation, the Sustainable Jobs Fund, the kind of work that SEON does, that we have these assets that we haven't pulled together into a collective story about Vermont and about where Vermont's headed as a strategy for economic development. So we're inviting everyone to come to the Latchis on the 6th to share their perspective on that story, to tell us what they think should come next. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the council we've created to listen to all this and to build platform in a minute. But maybe we should hear something about the working landscape in Windham County.
So, Strolling of the Heifers. Strolling of the Heifers is more than a parade. We started the parade and festival to capture people's imagination. And I think we've done that locally and nationally. And it's to celebrate local farmers and national farmers as well, and connect people with the food they eat. Strolling of the Heifers has evolved over the years. This is going to be our 15th year. And basically we listen to our local farmers and our local community about what our purpose is. And we have evolved to the point where we've been doing a lot of economic development, especially in the farm food sector. We all want Brattleboro to be the #1 food state in the country, but we need to create more businesses that will support those farms and allow our farms to stay in business. And that's what Strolling of the Heifers has done. For the last 8 years, we had a farm food business planning competition. We also partnered with BDCC for the traditional piece, but our role was for the farm food. Over the last 8 years, there has been 120 finalists, meaning that out of those 120, at least each finalist got $1,000 for first place, $5,000 for second, and $10,000 for the winning first place. And there have been a lot of new businesses built around that. There are 4 divisions within the competition. This past year, we gave out $78,000. We had some help from Vermont Yankee resettlement money, as well as Strolling of the Heifer funds, as well as Vermont Community Foundation and Windham Foundation that has helped us with that as well. And out of those 120 that we've had, 78% are still in business. And we've created in the last 8 years, at least 350 jobs. So we're very excited about that. And climate change for the economy, climate change for our planet is to keep our working lands open and create jobs from that. So it's very exciting, and I thank you, Paul, for this conference, and especially SEON. I have to say that 3 years ago when I heard about SEON, I could not believe the good work you've done in such a short period of time. And I believe the first 2 years we had a big tent at the Strolling of the Heifers, really introducing SEON to the community. And it received amazing response. So my hat's off to you in such a little amount of time, how much work you've done with that.
It's a bit of a foreign, you might say, concept for people. You know, the idea of competitors getting together, as we were talking before, and collaborating is, you know, it is what we need to do, of course. And here we are in Vermont. You know, we need to be together as much as we can. But it's an unusual thing in sort of a capitalist economy for competitors to be collaborators.
Well, it's really interesting how it works in the food system, you know, where you have groups like the Center for an Ag Economy in Hardwick, where they've really looked at all the different products they make, where do they begin and end, how do they share distribution, transportation, resources, can they do storage together, what are the next things that they're going to need as a team to grow their businesses, how do they access capital potentially even together. So that mutualism of working together for your cluster's development is great, and it also builds this visibility. You know, I've heard of SEON for years, and it's leverage for the development of the whole sector. So when we think about this, we think that this sector that responds to and builds resilience in the face of climate change is also sort of connected in that way, but that we haven't built the links as effectively as we could to tell the Vermont story, that Vermont is actually a center place that's figuring a lot of this work out, that we're developing more energy, we're advancing systems for efficiency, we're working with an expanding working landscape and more farms and young families that want to be doing that than in the recent past. We're expanding recycling with the new statewide recycling law to get organics out of the waste stream. There's nothing that should be in the waste stream when you think about it. Everything's got a value, and groups like Costello's, you know, the corporation, they're always trying to invent new ways to use those wastes. So when we think about this sector, we think, what are the things that we need to do in Vermont that would dramatically support this part of the economy and also help us tell the story of Vermont to entrepreneurs from outside of the state. We probably aren't going to be a state that's going to attract 500-person factories. We don't have a lot of open land. We also have a strong culture and community that looks for businesses that fit, that connect to our downtowns and strengthen our downtowns, that connect with the working lands, and that are going to be anchors for good paying jobs for the next generation of young people. We also have a problem, town to town throughout the state, of attracting youth. We're a rural state, and rural areas across the country are challenged to bring youth and to provide inspiring places for kids who grew up there. And Vermont's strong. You know, we talk about being one of the oldest states, but that's because the whole state is rural. You know, if you go to rural Kansas, you see much worse conditions. But with that, we still have the challenge of inspiring young people. And so part of this to us is also the movement around incubation. Now I know BDCC is looking at an accelerator in town. You're looking at a, what do you call it? A hatchery. And other towns are looking at maker spaces, incubators. This is a movement in Vermont that also is part of this, because when you think about young people in digital economic development, gamers, software developers, coders, there's an enormous amount of creativity there that are going to be solving problems that connect both to building efficiencies, but to transportation systems, and to other ways of being much more efficient in doing things that are part of the solution too. And capturing the imagination of young entrepreneurs in that sector is also crucial for our downtowns. They're basically non-polluting jobs. So together we want to think about how do we pull this economy forward. And we're really excited to have Adam Grenold, the Brattleboro BDCC, Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, as a co-host with us. And we've got a number of groups in town like you folks, SEON and Strolling, that'll help spread the word. We've got a panel of speakers at the beginning of this, including Peter Yost from Building Green, who's a member
He's
of
on our
SEON,
board, yeah.
Orly, and Bob Stevens from Stevens and Associates, who've done the heroic downtown redevelopment project in Brattleboro that marks it as a downtown on the move big time.
That's right.
But you've got so many other assets, the co-op redevelopment and just the spirit of this downtown, which is really exciting to us as visitors from the outside. So as visitors, we're coming to Brattleboro wanting to hear good ideas from folks in Brattleboro. We're not here to say, is climate change real or get into the science at this stage. We had a conference last February where we had that conversation to start, and then we thought about all the different ways Vermont should be prepared from an economic development point of view. Now we're asking residents for their ideas. When we think about where we're going, what ought to be our platform as a state? We've built a council, which we call the Vermont Climate Change Economy Council. It has people like Mary Powell from Green Mountain Power, Neil Lenderville from Burlington Electric, Sue Minter from the Agency of Transportation, leaders from Sustainable Jobs, from VEIC, business leaders from credit unions, from insurance agencies, from solar companies, all who are putting their ideas together on the table. But we listened first at the big conference in February. We're going around the state now to hear people's ideas, like at the Latchis on the 6th. And we're bringing people in to testify to us and share their best ideas. And we're going to be building a platform that we'll bring back to the public on February 26th at a conference at VTC. We think Vermont is positioned to build a large unified movement. And it's a movement, from our point of view, that's not it's not just a feeling that Vermont should lead. It's about building an economy that does so. We can complain about climate change, we can feel paralyzed by it, or we can react away from it. But the people who solve the problems around climate change, the businesses that model solutions, are going to make money. They're going to build economic foundations for the future. They're going to be the places where dynamic young people want to work. And we have the opportunity to say, we're going to react for it. We're going to work to be a center point. That Vermont, with our values, with our scale, with the assets we have, is situated to be a national leader, get national attention, and inspire a generation of folks that want to be involved and want to lead. And that's where we need to be.
I think that's all great stuff. It's just a great thing, and it feels like a renewal, really. So
just like from what you were just saying, for Strolling of the Heifers with our business planning competition, lessons learned from the business planning competition, there's a lot of young people who apply to that. What we have learned is that any contestant in the business planning competition have told us that the process is more interesting to them and the big takeaway for them rather than the cash prize. Of course, the cash prize is a little nice, but they're getting $1,000, $5,000, and $10,000. Through the process, they were introduced to investors. They had a lot of consultation, but it ends. So from lessons learned from that, and there are a lot of younger people who are interested in the land and being stewards of the land, we've decided to work hard and launch our new program called Windham Grows. We're starting with a name holder of Windham Grows because clearly Windham County really needs this help right now. And it's going to be an individualized business plan and it's going to be competitive, and it will be about 3 to 6 months depending on the need. And we will help young fledgling businesses that have good ideas, and there's lots of good ideas out there, with web development, with marketing, with accounting, with legal services, if they need a commercial kitchen, if they need some land to start, if they need a barn, whatever individual need they have, we will try to work in the center. Right now, we're in the process of applying to various foundations, and they're very interested in this. And we're hoping to have the main office for this at the River Garden. And I'm happy to announce that on Friday, USDA signed some papers with us, and we're going through some renovations. You'll notice when you walk by the River Garden in the next few weeks, there'll be another staircase added and even a handicap lift that will take you downstairs. That should be done hopefully by March, April, and we'll be able to start that. The whole idea for that, as in climate economy, climate change, is being stewards of the land, creating businesses that will take care of our land. And this, just like Paul was saying, the main attraction is to bring in younger people and help them create businesses. We're not interested in businesses that have 500-600 people, as we just learned in Windham County. When an employer that employs so much leaves, it leaves a big gap, especially good paying jobs. We're more interested in smaller businesses that will be able to replenish themselves easy, and the community can absorb that. So we're very excited about that, and if any listeners are out there, they would like to talk more to us about it, we'd be happy to hear from them. Just stop by the River Garden.
Well, that's great. That's an exciting new venture, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Paul, I know your name says Vermont Council on Rural Development, and people might think that it's just all about agriculture, but that's not the case.
No, this is really much bigger than agriculture. In fact, we're called rural development, and from our point of view, 90% of Vermont is rural, including some of the towns and cities, as by federal definition. But most of our work is really just about Vermont. It's not necessarily geared to small communities. We care very much about agriculture. We help to form the statewide ag development process that built WELEB, the Working Lands Enterprise Board, that's making similar investments to that. I've got a quick story about that before I go back to the Latchis, but we heard about this gal, Callie Hastings, who got one of those grants. She runs Fat Toad Farm. They have a goat dairy, they have vegetables, and then they invented this goat-based caramel, goat milk caramel, that is really well received by gourmets and other folks. And they looked at their business model after a couple of years and they said, it's really in the caramel that we're making money. And so they got one of the grants to expand their processing, and they were able to hire people. And this gal says, when I moved to Brookfield to start this, I was the only person in my 20s in town. I had no friends here. It was very lonely. And she said, then we hired 6 people. And suddenly I've got a cohort of young people that I'm hanging with. And when we did that, we found that there were 2 other farm businesses starting in this town that each hired 6 people. So suddenly there's 18 young people in this town. It's a cohort. We visit, we share, we talk all the time. And some of us are settling down and getting married and having kids. When you think about the schools and the challenge of declining enrollment, this is the way to expand the economy, is to attract these people. A lot of the theories around economic development are that it's important that we're working to bring companies to Vermont, but equally important, or even more important, is to capture the imagination of creative entrepreneurs and attract them because of where we are, because of the values of this place, the assets of this place, and the fact that there are other really creative people doing cool stuff. That's what's going to be our biggest hook. And so a lot of this is really to tell that story, and tell it by using the climate and our response to that as a hook. That said, we really want to hear from business leaders especially, but other people who have ideas about ways to leverage this economy forward. In thinking about answering the big challenge of the climate, you know, in some ways, it's all about the economy. It's all about the way we live our lives and make the resources to support our families. And doing that in a way that mitigates carbon and that builds resilience and that connects to and protects the working landscape, it's a natural winner, and it fits perfectly with who we are as a people in Vermont.
Yes. So Paul, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the program?
Well, I know we only have a minute left or so,
Oh,
but
dear.
on October 6th from 7 to 9, Latchis Theater, everyone is welcome. Bring your idea on how this economy can move forward. If you want more information, you can go to VT Rural, www.vtrural.org, and there's lots of information there. There's access points for the Facebook page that shares lots of what's been going on. But everyone's welcome, and we hope we get a great turnout, and really interested to hear what people down here have to say about this.
People have a lot to say.
I know.
So I don't think you'll be disappointed. And this is the third
This is the
event
second
like this?
one, and then
Second one.
then Miro Weinberger in Burlington will host the third one in City Hall up there.
And the first one was in Rutland?
Yeah,
Yeah.
hosted
And
by the
how
mayor.
was that?
It was great. We had about 70 people. We think we're going to beat that number here.
I'm sure you will.
But lots of ideas, lots of dynamism. It's not really a debate. People get to hold the mic and share their perspective, but we're trying to build a list of good ideas, not argue it out and make final decisions. But we'll also be inviting everybody who participates to the next phase at this summit that we will have at VTC to move things forward.
Well, that's great. That's great. It's great to hear that it's happening all over the state, and sometimes we get left out.
No, it's
down here
exciting
in
to
the
be
South.
in Brattleboro.
Yeah.
There's something super dynamic down here that we want to learn from. And the work that you guys have done really stands for something. So we're excited to learn more.
Oh, great.
And just for the listeners, from my experience, Vermont Council on Rural Development, they really do listen when people make suggestions and so forth. So I encourage everybody to come out and give your opinion and ideas. They're going to definitely listen to you.
Well, great. Well, thank you very much. And everybody who's watching this, please come out and encourage your friends and neighbors to come out as well. And we'll have a great night, I'm sure. That's October 6th, 7 to 9.
Thank you so
Latchis.
much, Gary.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Orly.